Born into a dynasty obsessed with blood purity, Maria Anna of Spain was the product of generations of royal inbreeding. Married off to her first cousin and crowned Holy Roman Empress, her life spiraled into duty, suffering, and dynastic decay as she endured the horrors of the 30 Years' War. This is her story. Maria Anna of Spain was born at the Escorial Palace north of Madrid in Spain on the 18th of August 1606. Her father was King Philip III of Spain, the powerful monarch who ruled the vast Iberian Empire from 1598. At the time, Spain was considered the preeminent power in Europe, one which ruled over large parts of Italy and the Low Countries, and had an extensive colonial empire across the Americas, the Caribbean, and even in the Philippines. The Spanish court was consequently a place of vast riches, and young Maria Anna was raised in luxury, unimaginable splendor, but also suffocating royal duty. Maria Anna's mother was Margaret of Austria, her father's first cousin once removed, a match that was hardly unusual in the dangerously tangled family tree of the Habsburg dynasty. The family was split into two royal powerhouses, the Austrian Habsburgs, who ruled over Central Europe, and the Spanish Habsburgs, who commanded an empire stretching from Madrid to the Americas. But their strategy for keeping power in the family came at a cost. They married each other, again and again and again. By the time Maria Anna was born, centuries of obsessive inbreeding had turned the Habsburg bloodline into a genetic time bomb, riddled with overlapping ancestries and devastating health risks. On her father's side, she descended from King Philip II of Spain and his niece, Archduchess Anna of Austria, and on her mother's side, another Habsburg uncle-niece pairing, Charles II of Inner Austria and Maria Anna of Bavaria. Maria Anna was related to herself through multiple branches of the same twisted family tree, yet, remarkably, she showed none of the infamous Habsburg deformities or afflictions, at least not outwardly. The worst was yet to come though, and future generations wouldn't have the same luck. Maria Anna was the fourth of her parents' children. An older sister, Anna, would go on to become Queen of France, while her older brother would become King Philip IV of Spain in 1621. This came after their father died prematurely at 42 years of age, after contracting a disease that remains uncertain to this day, though typhus or influenza are among the suspected causes. By the time her father died, the issue of who Maria Anna would marry had been debated at the Spanish court for several years. With King Philip III gone, her brother, the newly crowned Philip IV, seized control of her fate. All eyes turned to one controversial high-stakes plan, the so-called Spanish match, a proposed marriage that would ignite fierce diplomatic battles, stir national outrage, and nearly unite two of Europe's greatest powers. The subject of Maria Anna's potential marriage turned into a major diplomatic affair in the politics of Europe in the 1620s. When she was still a child, there had been a plan to marry her to her cousin, Archduke John Charles, a son of Ferdinand II, the future Holy Roman Emperor. But this fell through when John Charles died in 1618. At the time, Spain and France were locked in yet another clash for dominance, and it was now that a shocking proposal emerged: an alliance with England. Maria Anna was now planned to marry none other than Charles, Prince of Wales, the heir to the thrones of England, Scotland, and Ireland. It was a bold, almost unthinkable move, uniting two historic rivals through marriage. Yet, in the ruthless game of European power politics, nothing was off the table. Thus began the infamous negotiations over the Spanish match, a royal gamble that would send shockwaves through courts and kingdoms alike. These negotiations began in 1621 following the death of Philip III and the accession of Maria Anna's brother as King Philip IV. New councillors now ran the government in Madrid, and they advised that the marriage alliance with England should be promoted. The talks dragged on for years, culminating in 1623 in a bizarre incident where Prince Charles and the Duke of Buckingham travelled to Spain in disguise to further the negotiations. When they arrived at the Spanish court and revealed themselves, things seemed to go well at first, but then the talks broke down. Charles considered he had been treated poorly and left for England. When he returned, he brought back more than disappointment. He brought a diplomatic disaster. The marriage plans didn't just collapse, they imploded, triggering outrage, scandal, and a chain reaction that led to all-out war. By 1625, the Anglo-Spanish War had begun, and it would drag on for 5 bloody years. King Philip now needed to find a new husband for his little sister, and he would find the perfect match within his own family. With the collapse of negotiations over the Spanish match and the descent into war, the Spanish government now returned to the idea of marrying Maria Anna to one of her many cousins. And so it was that in 1626, Maria Anna was betrothed to her cousin, Archduke Ferdinand of Austria, the son and heir of Emperor Ferdinand II. He was also the younger brother of Archduke John Charles, who had once been proposed as a husband for Maria Anna before his untimely death years earlier. The marriage negotiations dragged on for 2 years as points of conflict concerning the dowry and the succession rights in Spain continued. In the end, it was only late in 1629 that Maria Anna and her entourage finally left the Spanish court and set out for Vienna. The journey took well over a year, largely delayed by a devastating outbreak of the bubonic plague in Italy, one of the worst the region had seen in early modern history. Before the wedding could take place, though, Ferdinand, wary of the idealized portraits he'd received, decided to see his bride in secret. Only after this private inspection did he agree to proceed with the marriage. Finally, on February 20, 1631, Maria Anna married the future Emperor Ferdinand III in Vienna. At 24 years old, she was considered a fairly old royal bride, but she was close in age to her new husband, who was just a year younger at 23 years old. Despite the political nature of the match, the marriage proved to be surprisingly warm and affectionate. Ferdinand was deeply devoted to his wife and remained faithful throughout their union, a rarity among royals of the era. Maria Anna's cheerful and lively nature balanced Ferdinand's more solemn personality, bringing light to an otherwise serious court. But their marriage unfolded against a grim backdrop, the brutal and unrelenting 30 Years' War, which ravaged across Europe and left devastation in its wake. In order to understand how Maria Anna's life was lived in Central Europe after her marriage to Ferdinand, we need to look at the conflict that was ravaging there in the first half of the 17th century. Germany had been divided over religion ever since the Protestant Reformation began in 1517. There had been intermittent wars between Catholics and Protestants amongst the dozens of major German states throughout the 16th century. These had boiled over again in 1618 after the Protestants of Bohemia, a kingdom corresponding to modern-day Czechia, which the Habsburgs ruled, had tried to resist efforts to reimpose Catholicism in Prague and other places. The Bohemian War expanded into the 30 Years' War in 1618 and 1619 as more and more German states joined the conflict. Even as Maria Anna was at the centre of negotiations with England over the Spanish match in the first half of the 1620s, the Habsburgs had won victory after victory and were looking like achieving their goal of imposing their authority over all of Germany. But then, in order to avoid a Habsburg victory, other major Protestant powers began intervening in the conflict. The Kingdom of Denmark got involved in 1625, followed by the Swedish intervention in 1629. As these Protestant powers intervened, their armies pushed the Habsburgs southwards from Germany back towards Austria and Bohemia. Entire cities were reduced to rubble, and once secure lands collapsed in days. The war was closing in, and soon it would reach even the royal Habsburg family. By the time Maria Anna arrived in Austria, the war had already claimed the lives of several 100,000 men. But the worst impact was felt by the civilian population. As farms were burned out and entire towns and cities were destroyed, everyday life was disrupted, and famine developed in some places. It is estimated that anywhere between 4 and 10 million people died before the war ended, making this the most destructive war in the history of early modern Europe. Even within the gilded walls of the Habsburg palaces, Maria Anna couldn't ignore the suffering outside. The empire her new family ruled was being torn apart, and the horrors of war crept ever closer, all while her husband, deeply involved in the conflict, was often away at the front. This wouldn't just haunt the world around her, it would come to define her entire life. From the moment she married, Maria Anna became queen consort of both Hungary and Bohemia, but her rise didn't stop there. In 1637, following the death of her father-in-law, her husband was elected Holy Roman Emperor, and Maria Anna ascended as Holy Roman Empress at one of the most critical moments in European history. Despite the fact that the French were broadly Catholics, they intervened in the war directly from 1635 onwards to keep the Protestant German states alive in order to reduce the power of the Habsburgs. As this happened, the Austrian Habsburgs needed the help of their Spanish cousins more than ever. Maria Anna was a vital point of contact between the Austrian and Spanish governments, writing regularly to her brother, King Philip IV of Spain. She urged him to continue the war against the French and their allies, and continue aiding the Austrian side of the family. With her husband frequently away, leading military campaigns across Germany, Maria Anna became a central figure in the Austrian court. Rather than relying on male ministers, Ferdinand entrusted her with real power, appointing her as regent on multiple occasions, a rare honour that spoke volumes about his trust in her judgment and political skill. But while she ruled in his absence, another royal duty loomed, one far more personal, far more perilous, and one that would end in heartbreak. Maria Anna was regularly pregnant after she married Ferdinand. Royal women were expected to try and have as many children as possible in late medieval and early modern times. 1 in 3 children died in infancy, and others were claimed as they grew older by diseases like measles and smallpox. The best way to secure the royal line was therefore to have as many children as possible, and preferably multiple sons. The eventual heir to Ferdinand III was actually born within 2 years of his and Maria Anna's marriage. This was the future Ferdinand IV, born in September 1633. Maria Anna's second child, a daughter named Mariana after her mother, was born in December 1634, just 15.5 months after Ferdinand. In a worrying escalation of the inbreeding between the Austrian and the Spanish Habsburgs, she would go on to marry her uncle, King Philip IV of Spain. A second son, Philip Augustus, was born in 1637, but he died before reaching his second birthday. A third son, Maximilian, did not even reach his first birthday. Finally, though, a healthy second heir was born in 1640. This child, named Leopold, would eventually succeed to the Habsburg domains in the late 1650s and would go on to become one of the longest reigning and most successful Habsburg rulers in the family's nearly 900-year-long history. As the 1640s went on, Maria Anna and Ferdinand most likely believed that Leopold would be their last child. Maria Anna, after all, was nearing her 40th year by the mid-1640s. So, when Maria Anna unexpectedly fell pregnant again in late 1645, it came as a shock, a final unexpected twist in an already turbulent life. But this sixth and final pregnancy would not bring celebration. Maria Anna's final pregnancy would end in tragedy, in part because of the disordered state of Austria in 1646. The Swedish had gained the upper hand in the 30 Years' War with French aid, and in the mid-1640s were advancing southwards into Bohemia and Austria. Maria Anna and her family were at a royal residence at Linz when they received word of the rapid advance of the enemy into lands which were previously considered beyond the reach of the Swedish and their French and German allies. In a state of panic, the royal family fled to Vienna as enemy forces closed in. The pressure was immense, the court was in turmoil, the empire was crumbling at the edges, and Prague would eventually fall to the advancing Swedish army before the war's end. Amid this chaos and fear, Maria Anna became pregnant with her 6th child. Then the unthinkable happened. The plague arrived to Vienna. The safest way to avoid the plague in those days was simply to escape from whatever city it arrived to and take up residence in a country house away from other people. Maria Anna and her children consequently headed back to Linz, despite the dangerous military situation. Shortly after arriving there, she became ill. Her situation deteriorated over the next weeks that followed, and on the 12th of May 1646, she began to bleed heavily. The doctors realized that the best chance of the child surviving was to cut it out of her, a dreadful practice which was all too common in the early modern world. And so, Maria Anna died from blood loss early on the 13th of May 1646, aged 39. The child lived for only a few hours, and they were buried together in the Habsburg Imperial Crypt in Vienna. The 30 Years' War went on for 2 more years. Even when Maria Anna died in 1646, peace negotiations were well underway at Westphalia and Osnabrück in the northwest of Germany. The Habsburgs had to accept defeat, and a principle was established that European states could no longer intervene in the affairs of other countries and principalities when it came to their religious affairs. Despite their love, Maria Anna's husband would marry twice more, but it was the sons and daughters which he and Maria Anna had that would go on to rule in Austria and to produce the future kings of Spain. Thank you so much everyone for watching this video on Maria Anna of Spain. I hope you found it interesting. Let me know what you thought of her life down below in the comments, and if you have any suggestions, also let me know down below in the comments. I hope my voice wasn't too croaky. I've been sick this past week with a really bad sore throat, and I even lost my voice, so hopefully the narration wasn't too bad and it sounded normal. Let me know down below in the comments. Also, I hope you guys are subscribed and the notifications turned on to get all my videos as soon as I upload them. Anyway, that's all from me, so I'll see all of you in the next Forgotten Life. Thanks!